What's up, my Wolfpack? It's your Alpha, Redbot. Oh, someone's already on. Hello. So, this time I'll be reading this. I know that I said I would read this if the last broadcast get 10 likes. It didn't get 10 likes, but I decided I was bored, so why not try this? Now, be warned, this book isn't that too kid friendly. I mean, it looks nice, but it can get dark fast. So keep that in mind. Anyone who doesn't like the mention of death, blood, so on. And this is not the book for you. Now, with further ado, let's begin the reading. Here's the graveyard. Just want to show a picture of that, if you can see well. What the heck? What am I getting in here? Okay. In the forms as primeval, a school for good and evil, two towers like twin heads, one for the pure, one for the wicked. Try to escape, you'll always fail. The only way out is through a fairy tale. Part 1. The Master and the Queen. It is natural to doubt your true love when you do not know if he is young or old. He certainly looks young, Sophie thought, peering at the lean, shirtless boy as he gazed out the tower window, bathed in fading sunlight. Sophie studied his hairless white skin and snug black breeches, his thick spiked hair, the color of snow, his tight vein in the arms, his glacier blue eyes. He didn't look a day more than 16. And yet somewhere within the beautiful stranger was a soul older than 16. Much, much older than 16. For the last 3 weeks, then. So, for the last 3 weeks, then, Sophie had refused his ring. How had she bound herself to a boy with a schoolmaster inside of him? Oh, hey, Ray. Anyway, just doing the reading. Right. And yet, the more Sophie looked at him, the more she couldn't see the schoolmaster. All Sophie could see was a fresh, as ethereal youth asking for her hand with sharp cheekbones. and full lips, more handsome than a prince, more powerful than a prince, and unlike Prince You Know Who, this boy was hers. Sophie read in remembering she was all alone in this world. Everyone had abandoned her. Every desperate effort to be good had been punished with betrayal. She had no family, no friends, no future. Give me a second. I want to do this also on reality. One quick second. Uh, no, let's begin. Let's get back to it. And now, this ravishing boy in front of her was her last hope for love. Panic burned through her muscles and dried out her throat. There was no chance anymore, or no choice anymore. Sophie swallowed and slowly stepped towards him. Look at him. He's no older than you. She soothed herself. The boy of your dreams. She reached shaking fingers for his bare shoulder, until she suddenly froze in her track. It was only magic that had brought this boy to life, she thought, pulling her hand back into her sleeve. But how long do magic last? You're asking yourself the wrong questions, came the smooth voice. Magic thinks nothing of time. Sophie lifted her eyes. The boy didn't look at her, his focus on the shallow sun, barely a force through the morning fog. Since when can you hear my thoughts? Sophie said, unnerved. I don't need to hear thoughts to know how a reader's mind thinks, he replied. Sophie took her place beside him in her black cloak, feeling the chill of his marble-colored skin. She thought of Tedros' skin, always sweaty and tan, with the warmth of a bear's. A hot flash bolted through her body, rage or regret, or something in between. She forced herself closer to the boy. Her arm brushed his pale chest. He still didn't look at her. What is it? She asked. The sun, he said, watching it flicker through the mist. Every day it rises weaker than the one before. If only you had the power to make the sun shine too, Sophie murmured. Every day it could be a tea party. The boy shot her a sour glare. Sophie stiffened, reminded that unlike her once good best friend, her new suitor was neither good nor friendly. She he quickly looked back out the window, shivering at an icy breeze. Oh, for heaven's sake, the sun is weakened in the winter. Don't need a sorcerer to know that. Perhaps it takes a reader to explain this too, he replied, sweeping to a white stone table. Uh, Sweeping to the white stone table in the corner, where a long, knife-sharp pen, shaped like a knitting needle, hovered over an open storybook. Sophie turned to the book, glimpsing the colors of the large page, her painted self kissing the schoolmaster back to youth as her best friend vanished, home with a prince. Malone, when the end. 3 weeks since the story wrote our Never After, said the boy. Within days, it should have begun a new story with love on evil sides. Ah, I can not talk. Evil's side now. Love that would destroy good, one fairy tale at a time. Love that turned the pen into evil's weapon instead of its curse. His eyes narrowed to slits. Instead, it It reopens the book it just closed and stays there, hanging over the end like a play whose curtain won't shut. Sophie couldn't look away from Agatha and Tedros on the page, embraced lovingly as they disappeared. Sophie's gut twisted, her face searing hot. Here, she he croaked, slamming the cover down on them, and shoving the cherry-red storybook next to the Frog Prince, Cinderella, and Rapunzel. Oh, and the rest of the historian's finished tales. There you go. There's the first hint of fairy tale. Anyways, her heartbeat calmed, curtain closed shut. Instantly, the book er, re- ah, sorry, I've never seen this word. Ricocheted ricocheted off the shelf and smashed into her face, knocking her against the wall before it flew onto the stone table, swinging open to the last page once more. The historian glimmered defiantly above it. Darn you, old pen! Oh, morning pizza. There is no accent, spoke the boy, stalking towards Sophie as she rubbed her stinging cheeks. The historian keeps our world alive by writing new stories, and at the moment, it has no intention of moving on from your story. As long as the pen does not move on to a new story, the sun dies, day by day, until the woods go dark, and it is the end for us all. That's kinda dark. Give me a second. Sophie looked up at him, silhouetted by a weak light. But what is it waiting for? He leaned in and touched her neck, his finger frigid on her peach cream skin. Sophie recoiled, jamming into the bookshelf. The boy smiled and drew closer, blocking out the sun. I'm afraid it has doubts whether I'm your true love. He cooed. It has doubts whether you've committed to evil. It has doubts about whether your friend and her prince should be gone forever. Sophie slowly gazed up at the black shadow. It, it meaning you, said the schoolmaster, holding out his hand. Sophie looked down to see the ring of gold in his cold young palm, and her terrified face in its reflection. 3 weeks before, Sophie had kissed the schoolmaster into a boy and banished her best friend home. For a moment, she felt the relief of victory as Agatha silently disappeared with Tedros. Her best friend may have chosen a prince over her, but there was no such thing as a prince in Gavaldon. Victoria, yeah, welcome to the broadcast. Hopefully, you're having a wonderful morning, day, night, or afternoon. Gavin. Agatha would die an ordinary girl with an ordinary boy. Oh, thanks for the follow. While she basked in ever after, far, far away, wrapped in the arms of her true love, soaring towards his silver tower in the sky, Sophie waited to feel happy. She'd won her fairy tale, and winning was supposed to mean happiness. But as they landed in his murky stone chamber, Sophie started to shake. Agatha was gone, her best friend, her soulmate, and with her she'd taken a boy who Sophie had grown close to in so many forms, when she was a girl, when she was a boy, when he was her true love, when he was just her friend. Agatha had won Tedros, and the only boy Sophie ever truly knew. Tedros had won Agatha, the one person Sophie never thought she'd live without, and Sophie had won a beautiful boy of whom she knew nothing except the dark depths of his evil. Sound like a horrible choice. As the schoolmaster moved towards her, young as a prince, with a cocky smile, Sophie knew she'd made a mistake. Only it'd been too late to turn back. Through the window, Sophie glimpsed Agatha's vanishing embers, the castle rotting. Vultures black boys and girls smashing into a vicious war, teachers firing spells at students at each other. Stunned, she twirled to the schoolmaster, only to see the frost-haired boy on one knee before her, ring in hand. Take it, he'd said, and 2 years of war would cease. No more good versus evil. No more boys versus girls. Instead, only indisputable evil. A schoolmaster and his queen. Take the ring, the beautiful boy said, and she would have her happy ending at last. She didn't. The schoolmaster left her alone in the tower, sealing the windows so she couldn't escape. Every morning, when the clock struck 10, he came and asked again. His young, sin- sinewy body. Oh, uh, where was I? Young, sinewy. Crap. Uh, okay. Inexplicably clad in different colors. One day a lace-up shirt, the next a strapping tunic or tight vest or ruffled collar, and his cloud-white hair just as fickle, whether sleek or tousled or curled. He brought gifts too, exquisite jeweled gowns, luxurious bouquets, lavender and perfume, vials of cream and soap and herbs, always anticipating her next wish. Still, Sophie shook her head each time, and then he'd be gone without word. Scowling with teenage look, she stayed there trapped in his chambers alone, with the company of his fairy tale library and his old blue robes and silver mask abandoned like relics to hooks on the wall. Food would appear magically 3 times a day at the moment she felt hungry, and precisely what she was craving in perfect portions on plates made of bone. Steamed vegetables, steamed fruit, steamed fish, and the occasional bowl of bacon and beans. Mmm, bacon. She couldn't shake the cravings from her time as a boy. When a night fell, a, a giant bed was materialized in the chamber with velvet sheets the color of blood and a white lace canopy. Hi, Kaichi. But he never returned until the next morning for the silent ritual of ring and refusal. Thanks for the like. By the second week, Sophie began to wonder what had happened to the schools. Had her rejections prolonged the war between boys and girls? Had she caused any lives? She tried to ask what had become of her friends, of Hester, Dot, Annadale, Hort, but he answered no question, as if the ring was the price of moving forward. Today was the first day he'd even spoken since he brought her here. Now standing beside him in the glow of a dying sun, Sophie saw she could no longer delay without consequence. The time had come for her to seal her ending with him or slowly fade into death too. The gold ring sparkled brighter in the schoolmaster's hand, promising new life. Sophie looked up at the bare-chested boy, praying to see reason to take it, and saw nothing but a stranger. I can't, she breathed, shrinking against herself. I don't know the first thing about you. The schoolmaster stared at her, square jaw flexing, and put the ring back in his breeches. What is it you would like to know? For one thing, your name, she said. If I'm going to stay here with you, I need something to call you. The teachers call me master. I'm not calling you master, she snapped. He gritted his teeth, about to fire back, but Sophie, he wasn't coward or coward. Without me, your never after doesn't exist. She preempted, voice rising. You're nothing but a boy, a well-built, virile, absently handsome boy. But still a boy. You can't lord over me. You can't scare me into love. I don't care if you're gorgeous or rich or powerful. Oh, here we go with this part. Pedro had all of those things, and Lottie thought, didn't that turn out well? I deserve someone who makes me happy, at least as happy as Agatha, and Agatha doesn't have to call Tedro Prince for the rest of her life, does she? Because Tedros has a name like every boy in the world, or so, and so do you, and I will call you by it if you expect me to actually give you a chance. Oh, feisty. The school master swelled crimson, but Sophie was breathing flames now. Right, I'm in charge now. You might be the master of this infernal school, but you are not my master, and you will never be. You said it yourself. The historian won't write because it is waiting for my choice, not yours. I choose whether I take your ring. I choose whether this is the end. The choice, the, the choice whether this world lives or dies. And I'm happy to watch this if you expect a slave instead of a queen. Interesting. The schoolmaster glowered at her, veins pulsing beneath his ghost white neck. He bit his lip so hard Sophie thought he was as about to eat her, and she stepped back in horror, only to see him slacken with an angry pant and looked away. Then he was quiet for a long time, his fist clenched. Raphael, he murmured. My name is Raphael. Raphael, she thought. Astonished in an instant, she saw him anew. The color of milk of his skin, the dull scent sparkle in his eyes, the erratic puff of his chest matching the storm and youth of a name. Raphael. What's it about a name that gives us a story to believe in? He suddenly felt the blush of desire craving to touch him. Oh, learn your name. I will boop you. Boop. Until she remembered what choosing him would mean. This was a boy who'd un- butchered his own blood in the name of evil, and he believed her capable of the same. Sophie held herself back. What was your brother's name? She asked. He spun, eyes aflame. I don't see how that will help you get to know me any better. Sophie didn't press the point. Oh, Ray's doing. Hey, if you want to check out Ray's stream, go ahead. He does movie reviews and song reviews. She didn't press the point. Then, behind him, she noticed the fog abating, revealing a greenish haze over two black castles in the distance. It was the first time in 3 weeks he'd unsealed a window long enough for her to see through. Both schools seemed dead quiet, no sense of life on any of the roofs or balconies. Where is everyone? She sputtered, squinting at the huge bridge between the castle. What happened to the girls? The boys going to kill them? A queen would have the right to ask me questions about the school she rules. He said, You're not a queen yet. Sophie cleared her throat, noticing in. I'm sorry, I can't say it without laughing. Noticing the bulge of the ring in his tight pocket. Uh, why do you keep changing clothes? It's strange. For the first time, the boy seemed uncomfortable. Given your refusal, I assumed dressing like the princess you chased would move things along. Wow, that's funny. He scratched his he scratched his rippled stomach. Then I remembered the son of Arthur wasn't fond of shirts. Sophie snorted, trying to ignore his perfect torso. Didn't think the all powerful were capable of self doubt. If I was all powerful, I could make you love me, he growled. Sophie heard the petulance in his voice, and for a moment saw an ordinary boy, lovesick and striving for a girl he couldn't have. Then she remembered this was no ordinary boy. No one can make anyone love them, she hit back. I learned that lesson harder than anyone. Besides, even if you could make me love you, you can never love me. You can't love anything, not if you embrace evil as a choice. It's why your brother died. And yet, I'm alive because of true love's kiss, he said. You tricked me into it. You never broke your grip. Sophie e- e- ba- blanched. I never kissed you. I and mean it. Oh, for me to return to life, to return to youth, the kiss had to go both ways, didn't it? He looked into Sophie's stunned face and grinned. Surely, your best friend taught you that. Sophie said nothing, the truth extinguishing her fight, just as Ekta once could have taken Tedra's hand before she chose Sophie instead. Sophie too could have sent the schoolmaster back to the grave. But here they were, both beautiful and young, victims of a kiss. She was trying to deny. Why had she held on to him that night? Sophie asked herself. Even once she knew it was him she was kissing. Looking up at the porcelain boy, she thought of everything he had done to win her across death and time. His unyielding faith that he could eh, that he could make her happy beyond any family, friend, or prince. He had come for her when no one else wanted her. He had believed in her when no one else did. Sophie's voice is clumped in her throat. Why do you want me so much? She rasped. He stared at her, the clamp of his jaw easing, his lips falling open slightly. For a moment she thought he looked the way Tedros did when he let down his guard, a lost boy a playing at a grown up. What? Because once upon a time I was just like you, he said softly. He blinked fast, falling into memory. I tried to love my brother. I tried to escape my fate. He even thought I found himself, but it only led to more pain, more evil. Just as every time you seek love, it leads you to the same. Your mother, your father, your best friend, your prince. The more you chase the light, the more darkness you find, and yet still you doubt your place in evil. Sophie tensed as he gently lifted her chin. For thousands of years, good has told us what love is. Both you and I have tried to love in their way, only to suffer pain, he said. But what if there's a different kind of love? A darker love that turns pain into power, a love that can only be understood by the two who share it. That's why you held her kiss, Sophie, because I see you for who you really are, and love you for it when no one else can. Before or because what we've sacrificed for each other is beyond what good can ever even fathom. It doesn't matter if they don't call it love. We know it is. Just as we know the thorns are as much a part of the rose as the petals. He leaned in, lips caressing her ear. I am the mirror of your soul, Sophie. To love me is to love yourself, he whispered. Then he raised her hand to his mouth and kissed it like a prince before he gently let it go. Sophie's heart wrenched so sharply she thought that he'd torn it out of her. She never felt so, she never felt so naked in her life and huddled tighter into her cloak. Then little by little, staring into the harsh symmetry of his face, Sophie felt her breath calm down. A strange, safe warmth flooding her core. He understood her, this dark-souled boy, and in the sapphire faucet of his eyes, she suddenly saw how deep they went. She shook her head, rattled. I don't even know if you're really a boy. What? He smiled at her. Your fairy tale has taught you one lesson, Sophie. It is that things are only as you see. Sophie frowned. I don't understand. She started, but somewhere in her soul she did. The boy looked at the sun, frail and hazy, over his cool, and Sophie knew that the time for questions was over. As he slid his hand into his pocket, Sophie could feel her whole body trembling, as if pulled towards a waterfall she wouldn't escape. Will we be happy as Tedros and Agatha? She asked, voice cracking. You must trust your story, Sophie. It has come to the end for a reason. He turned to her. But now it's time for you to believe it. Sophie looked down at the gold circle in his hand, and her breaths growing faster. With a shudder, she pushed him away. He reached for her, and Sophie shoved him against the wall, painting. Wait. Sophie shoved him against the wall, painting her own palm. Okay, that makes sense. Pinning her own palm flat against his rigid chest. He didn't resist as Sophie moved her hand over his sternum, eyes wild and panting hard. She didn't know what she was looking for until she found it beneath her fingers and frozen. Her hand rose and fell on his chest, rose and fell, his heart throbbing between them. Slowly, Sophie looked up at him, drinking in his strong, unhopeful beat. No doubt, oh, wait, no different than her own. Raphael, she whispered, wishing a boy to life. His fingertips caressed her face, and for the first time she didn't flinch from the cold. As he drew her in, Sophie felt a doubt melt out of her, her fear giving way to faith. Black cloak pressed to his white body, like two swans in balance. Sophie raised her left hand into the sunlight, steady and sure. Then Raphael slipped his ring onto her finger, the warm gold uh, lighting up her skin inch by inch until it fit tight. Sophie let out a gasp, and the slow white boy smiled, never breaking his gaze. In each other's arms, master and queen turned to the enchanted pen over their fairy tale, ready for to bless their love, ready for it to close their book at last. The pen didn't move. The book stayed open. Sophie, her heart stalled. What happened? She followed Raphael's eyes to the red amber sun, which had darkened in another shade. His face steeled to a deadly mask. It seemed our happy ending isn't the one the pen doubts. And that was chapter one. Since it took like half an hour to get through chapter one, I'll make this a multiple part one since, as you can see, we still got a lot to go. So hope you all enjoy part one of The School for Good and Evil, The Last Ever After. See you.